Hit the lights.
You've discovered the Half Watt Podcast. We want to educate and entertain by tapping into the most trusted source of new technology, the ones installing and innovating it. You, the tradespeople that build from the ground up. Join us as we talk with industry leaders, veteran contractors, and even some young blood.
Welcome aboard. All right, so tonight I'm talking to Corey Hannas. Did I say that right?
You did.
Excellent.
Bonus points, because that usually doesn't happen the first time around.
So you work for NFPA, which is obviously an organization we're pretty familiar with.
Oh, yeah.
And so tell me about your product development. And I want to go into more about you, but tell me about your product development. How does that work and what are you doing?
So for the codes and standards process, there's quite a bit that goes into it for tonight, but I guess the main thing, and I know we'll get a little bit talking about me a little bit later, but my background is in the electrical industry.
Oh, yeah, that's huge.
Public input side is what I'd like, for you guys to get out of this is understanding, because I have a lot of regrets where I am now, not having done that public input piece when I was in that position because I can't do it now. So that's really the only people in the world that can't submit public inputs to change the NEC are NFPA employees.
People who are writing it and are part of the staff.
Exactly.
Oh,
exactly.
No kidding.
And really from the standpoint of kind of what I always thought happened, I really thought, and I think the industry, when you kind of hear people talk about it, thinks the NFPA writes the code. And that's like the furthest thing from the truth. The NFPA manages the process of the development of the code, but public input from, society is what drives the code.
Now, I tell my students that, and I say, look, you could be a part of this. And I use the handbook and I say, look at all the folks that are involved.
Yep.
There's people from the industry, there's lawyers, there's electricians, there's insurance people. There's all kinds of tradespeople involved. You can be involved in this.
Absolutely.
And what you're saying is that if they're not involved in it, then they're not participating in the system as they should be.
Yeah. So what you're referencing is the technical committee. So the NEC, at least for the last couple cycles, have had 18 different technical committees.
Wow.
Most of them have, I would say, around 20 people that sit on the committees. And then there's also alternates. Everyone has an alternate typically. So there's, 35 to 40 people that are on these committees. A lot of the alternates will come and sit in the meetings. So that's, and it's balanced, There's the NFPA regulations, which you can kind of look at those if you want by going to nfpa.org/regs. That's REGS. Gives you a breakdown of the different, people that make up those committees, and there has to be a balance, no more than 1/3 of any of those. I think there's 11 total positions, or designations that you could have to be on those committees. So it's really, it's a balanced system. And you can certainly apply, get on those committees, and I can tell you how to do that if people are interested in doing that. But more so, even just the public input itself, just getting those changes in, like, we're doing this. I mean, boots on the ground in the field have a pretty good view of what's going on in the electrical world. What's difficult, what isn't.
But you said that now that you're in the inside, you're having a hard time, like you see things that you want to change and you can't because your hands are sort of tied.
Yeah, not necessarily that I want to change currently. With my current view, I know that I can't do that. I don't have any say in that. I can't from my position because we just manage the process. But looking back when I was a master electrician contractor, things of that, I never submitted a public input ever. Frankly, I didn't really know. I knew there was a process somewhere, but I never did any research to figure out how it worked. But it's pretty simple to do it. You can do it right online. And so that's my regret, is that I wish when I was on that side of the business, I would have actually, submitted public inputs and tried to change the code for things that I thought would make it better.
Now, your background is a master electrician, and you came from a family of electricians, correct?
I did, yeah. I'm actually third generation. So my grandfather started a business in the 50s. My dad spun off in the early 90s. I apprenticed under him. went through, got my master's contractor's license under him. And we mostly did commercial work for his company. So I dabbled in doing side work with my own company that I established doing residential stuff. I had some friends that were builders and stuff, so I would go wire houses for them. And then in the late 2000s, 2008, 2009, the economy here, and I'm from Michigan.
Yeah, you're from Ann Arbor, right?
So I grew up in Lansing. I've been in Ann Arbor
Lansing.
about 10 years now, moved here with my kids. But I grew up in the Lansing area. So that's pretty much where I did most of my work. And it was just, rough time economy, 08, 09. And Dad decided, I've had my fill of this. I'm going to close the doors. And I just kind of took some clients and stuff and ran and did my own thing for a while, built my business, and then sold that to a company. A good friend of mine had a pretty sizable company in Lansing, about 75 people. And then I went there. I sold my company to him, went to work as a VP, and we grew it to 225 people. Before we left and came to NFPA.
That's a big concern, man.
Oh, yeah. People. And that was, I would say, I'd like to say it was an easier time to find people. I know right now there's just so much work. It's spread thin,
So you were doing at this point with this company, commercial and residential, or just commercial?
Yeah. So that particular company did both commercial and residential, but we had divisions to it. So I ran the commercial multifamily division, and then we had another gentleman that ran the residential division. And we had 4 different offices. Lansing was the headquarters. Then we had Grand Rapids, Traverse City, Davison, and then we opened a little Ann Arbor.
So that's a hell of a like a feather in your cap to help grow a company to that size. I've been involved in that. That's a lot of work, brother.
Lots of help. So it wasn't. It's in a lot of caps for sure. I mean, it was a good group. I mean, I loved working with them. I still would be to this day if I didn't have a desire just to do something different with my knowledge. Like I decided, I started looking around, and I had taught apprenticeship for about 15 years, and I decided that I was kind of getting worn out on the contracting side of the business, engaging with customers, trying to hire new people and things of that nature. And it's probably overload from what we'd done in those 5 years that I was with them. But I'm like, there's got to be something else out there I can do with my knowledge. And I started browsing around. And I also had a heck of a commute. I was driving an hour each way just to get to the Lansing office. From Ann Arbor. So I was getting a little burned out on that. My kids were getting into high school sports. I wanted to be there for that stuff. So that was a big factor in it as well. But I started looking around and found NFPA had a remote position open, and I knew they were in the Boston area. But when I read remote, this was February of 2020. So it was before everybody went remote and before anybody really knew what COVID-19 was.
Yeah, no kidding.
So it was really perfect timing. I found that online. It was a remote position. I emailed them, sent them my resume, and said, is this thing really remote? Like, can I sit in my house in Ann Arbor?
Is this really NFPA? Like, this is the real guy.
Right. So we had some back and forth. It was really remote. They were trying to expand their horizons, and like a lot of companies, they didn't know at the time, if things could happen remotely, but they were willing to take that chance. And now we've went, the entire company's remote.
I noticed that. I noticed like every people all over the country now.
Yeah.
Like when I looked at the NFPA About Us, because I've used it for years, but I hadn't really looked at the leadership or any of that stuff.
Sure.
So I looked at them. Yeah, they're all over the country.
Yep. It casts obviously a wider net, gives you a more talent pool to select from. So yeah.
So did B.O.P come during that transition?
So the B.O.P, you're talking the B.O.P program?
Yep.
Yep. So it's building opportunities for people as the acronym, but we actually did that with the company that I was with previously, right before NFPA. And we were trying to figure out a way to give back to the community. Of course, like I said, I'd been in the, teaching the apprenticeship side of the business. So we had that connection with that group that we taught for. There was also a group in Lansing called the Homeless Angels that basically, would bring people in off the street. They had a hotel for a while that, they were putting people up in, old hotel. So we worked with them as kind of find the people that need this opportunity. And the goal was to, find homeless individuals or people that were struggling, pull them into this program and teach them basic construction skills. It was a 16-week program when they went for a couple hours a week. We went through that, and then toward the end of it, I mean, we talked a little bit during it, about the different trades and stuff like that, of course. But towards the end of it, it's like, what are you really interested in?
Wow.
And so we essentially, had some different contractors come in, interview them, and tried to land jobs for them with that. So that was really cool.
That to me is, I mean, reaching out to the community, pulling people in, and Michigan's been hit hard. We know that.
Oh yeah.
So the Rust Belt essentially, but that you're the second electrician I've talked to who's run a program similar to this.
That's great. I haven't heard of the other one, but most of them.
We talked to Energize Us, and he did basically something like that, where he had a house and he put people up, trained them how to be electricians, got them jobs in either his company or other people's company. They partnered, and he put them right to work.
That's outstanding.
So he basically gave a house. All they had to do was cover like minimal expenses, and then they were getting a paycheck as well.
Yeah.
And so it's just like exactly up my alley.
Yep. You hear the terms win-win. I mean, that one's like a win-win-win-win. It's kind of echoing through the distance, right? Because like when you think about it, I mean, you're helping yourself, you're helping the person, you're helping, the industry, you're helping the community. Like it. Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
And so, I teach here for limited energy folks. We're just like, that's why we're half-watts.
I was wondering, I was going to ask you.
That's exactly where it came from. So the gentleman here was in my class, and his brother was my apprentice and my student. And he worked for me when I was a manager at one of the companies. And he comes in my class. His cousin I hire. So the whole family's kind of involved. And he's sitting in my fire class. He goes, well, I do a podcast. Would you be interested in doing that? I went, yeah, I'd love to do it. Sure, I'll do podcasting. You tell me when you're ready. And sure enough, that damn guy called me. And so we started this thing, and he called it the Half Watt Podcast. Unbeknownst to us, another student started Half Watt Electrical at the same time. And they're all, plays on, because we're limited energy, under 100 volt amp kind of guys.
Absolutely. That's all I was going to ask where it came from. So
Oregon's got this huge, network of limited energy people, and we just crank a lot of electricians out. Awesome. And we need them.
You guys are in Portland? Is that where you're at?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, we're just south of the community right now in a place called Wilsonville. Okay. And we teach for Clackamas Community College. Okay. And they've aligned with the apprenticeship program with IEC and JATC.
Yep.
And those are the two groups that we feed.
Okay.
And the non-union side.
Yep. That's what so when I taught, I was with Associated Builders and Contractors.
Oh, yeah.
Michigan, the IEC presence, I don't know if it's picked up, but it wasn't heavy at the time. It was more Associated Builders and Contractors for that side. So that's who I worked in. I had all kinds of, I did my apprenticeship through them, immediately became an instructor when I came out, because I got my journeyman's license when I was in my third year of apprenticeship, just because I'd had so many hours working with summers and stuff. Yeah. So I got that. I was 20 when I got my journeyman's, and then 22 when I got my master's, but I started teaching through them. And then I ended up becoming the education director. I'm doing all this, of course, moonlighting because I've got a day job, but I did that. And then I became the chair of the overall chapter group. And then I eventually spent a couple terms as the state chair. Michigan does it a little different. They've got 3 different chapters, and then their legislative piece is state of Michigan. So they all kind of feed into that for the legislative piece. And so I chaired that for a while too. But yeah, that's where I came up through the ranks.
So you and I both been in this a while. I mean, I came out of the military and then jumped into this game. And so I didn't really, go through a quote apprenticeship, because at the time, if you had certain jobs in the military, you could just, take the test.
Sure.
You didn't know squat. Okay. What the hell's going on? So I had to learn all this stuff right alongside the apprentices. And when I look back, I thought, I really should have probably gone through apprenticeship, and not just taken that shortcut. Well, the state closed that path.
Okay.
And now, if you come out of the military, we look at what you've taken and kind of get an idea of where you're at in the program, and then insert you somewhere in.
Sure.
So you're not doing the whole thing. You don't need basic electricity, electronics if you've done it for a decade.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you definitely need to know how to pull wire.
Yeah. Yep.
What you can put in the conduit, but you can't.
Yep.
So,
yep. Well, thank you for your service.
Oh, sure.
That's awesome.
It was fun. I did Navy stuff. So
okay.
In electronic warfare.
My son's he just graduated high school last week. He's got his graduation party this weekend, but he's kicked around. I haven't heard it in a while, but he's kicked around maybe doing the Navy.
If he doesn't, sit down with a recruiter and make sure that he's got a job that he wants before he ever signs anything. That's the only thing I'll tell you.
Okay.
And make sure it's what he wants to do.
Appreciate the advice. Yeah. Yes. He's kicked around. He wants to be a pilot, but I told him that's, if you set your mind to it,
it's not impossible.
That's good.
Yeah, but to go in as an enlisted guy and work your way up to be a pilot is hard.
Okay.
If you go to college, or if you can go to Annapolis, probably too late since he's out of high school, but he can go to get his basic stuff done, sit down, talk to the NROTC folks, and say, hey, how do I pack myself into getting to flight school?
Good advice.
And they'll help you do that. But if he wants to be an enlisted guy, and there's nothing wrong with that, just sit down, make sure that you know exactly what you're going to do. If you want to be a machinist, go be a machinist. You want to be an electronic wizard, go do that. And matter of fact, since you know how to get a hold of me, I can help you with this.
I will be pinging you if he still wants to go that route for sure. I appreciate it.
We want you to be a bosun mate. There's nothing wrong with bosun mate. However, just make sure you understand what the job is.
Yeah, good advice.
It ain't pretty in some cases. So, but it was the best thing for me. It straightened me up and gave me a real solid electronic, background, and it hasn't failed me yet. So
gave you your foundation for where you're at now. So that's a good thing, right?
Yeah. But the teaching of these guys here in Oregon has become like a passion of mine, and I've done it for years now. I don't really want to stop. Yeah. And even though I've worked in the field doing, fire alarm stuff all my career, I still teach at night and kind of come in here and just do it. The same building, actually.
I get so those cold winter nights when the guy's coming from working in the cold, and then you get into the heat of the classroom and you're trying to keep them awake, and because they're like, dude, you got to make it interesting. Yeah. And so I have my accredited part of the course that I teach from a book, and then I just go ad lib about, hey, look, this is what it's really like. You go out to do a service call, you're fixing the client as much as you're fixing the problem. Oh yeah. And
if you don't know how to get zen with the problem and how to just focus on what's going on and make sure that you've got the client's okay and that you know what you're doing, and and if you don't, hey, I got to go out and get my tool, and walking out to your van, you're looking it up. What the hell is this thing? How am I going to fix it? You got to think about that.
Yeah.
Because your clients are,
they're
the ones that are paying your goddamn breakfast, man.
For sure. Oh, I get it. I remember those days.
So you do this, all these opportunities that you have, and you take all of them, and now you decide, okay, I'm going to go to NFPA, and you're going to start working for them remotely.
Yep.
You can be home with the kids when you need to. You can go see, that's awesome, because you can go see games and things that are important to them.
Yep.
And now you get your foot in the door here and realize, man, I had all these opportunities and all these things I had learned. I could have basically submitted and really didn't follow the process or didn't know the process. And now you're on this side of the fence going, hey, wait, everybody, if you got an idea, do this.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah. And it's not, to be frank, it's not the easiest to get stuff. I shouldn't say it's not the easiest. I'll say there's a process to it. You kind of have to figure the system and how you submit it. Like, you can't get discouraged, I guess, is where I should say is, if you don't want to get discouraged, if you submit something and it doesn't go through immediately, the committee will give you feedback kind of what it was missing, what they'd like to see. So you might have to go at it, 2-3 times, to get through the cycles and then try to get, that submitted again. But, it's worth trying, as the person that's out in the field that wants, to have an influence on that, knowing that you can do it. And that's, I didn't know that I even had that option, that it was that easy to do.
All right, kids. Now, everybody who listens to this podcast, as I said, you can be a part of this process. So get off your ass and be a part of the process, because everybody has these ideas.
You're saying what I can't say, but
I can say it.
I like your style.
Get out there and get involved.
Yeah, for sure.
I had a guy working for me, and I do sprinkler stuff as well. So that's a kind of a side thing that I got stuck in for a long time. But he was a sprinkler guy, and he was pretty good. He invented a whole line of specialized tools, and he put it together, marketed it, and now he's doing that for a living.
We're talking
he's going to be
sprinklers
successful.
Or fire sprinklers?
No, fire sprinklers.
Fire sprinklers. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah.
Nice.
So he came up with a whole specialized line of testing equipment and testing apparatus that is top notch. Put it together,
awesome.
Put a plan together, built it, marketed it. Every time I go on the web now and I happen to look for some sprinkler crap, I'm like, there it is.
Yeah.
So this guy's going to make himself a couple million. And here he was working for me. I didn't even know it. Right.
Those innovative minds get there. Right? It's helpful. I just wrote an article for, who did I write? Oh, IEI magazine. And I was, I said, not your grandfather's NEC. And, so I really was pushing our NFPA link platform, which we can talk about in a minute if you want.
Please, yeah.
It's a digital codes and standards platform. But in that, the thought process was, I remember a time when, we had, my grandfather had hand crank drills, and then I come in and, you got, powered drills for the most part. Battery drills started to come in a little bit. I remember Milwaukee had their stuff, and then Panasonic was like the drill to have for a while. Then it made its way through, but now you got these drills that are battery powered that you do everything with, so as this stuff changes, other things in the industry change too. So when you talk about innovation, but Link is, codes and standards platform. It has all our codes and standards, monthly subscription based. But it's, your code book is right in your pocket. I mean, everybody's got their phone, right?
Mm-hmm.
It works just like you can't go to the app store and get it. There's a different process to get it, but it works just like an app once it's on your phone. And when I came in, it was like project. Nobody outside of NFPA knew what it was. There was a special team in NFPA that was really working on the development of it. And I got to start building some of the stuff on the background. So I got indoctrinated pretty quick when I came in. And when I saw it, I'm like, that's a game changer. It's a big deal because, you get your code book, it's out in your truck, maybe you don't want to run out to your truck to grab it. You got, maybe you're on a 6-story building and it's 3 floors down in a gang box, what size ground do I need? I think it's this, pull it and, maybe you get it right. Maybe you don't, maybe you got a reinspection fee coming. But, to have that, instant code book right in your pocket, and all the stuff that's available with it, there's a lot more to it than just being the code book, but just, talking innovation, that's a big piece to me. The more people get that in their pocket, and have it available to them, and it's all NFPA codes and standards. So if you're getting into 70E, the standard for electrical safety in the workplace with arc flash and things of that nature, that's in there. Everything we have is in there.
So if you get a subscription, can you get like all of it or just like 70 or?
The subscription price is everything. It's everything. It's not a la carte, not pick and choose. And frankly, if you know what the NEC handbook is, the hardcover one that has the additional content in it, most of we went through the handbook material, and some of it we're like, we probably don't need that in Link. But I would say 98% of what's in the handbook is in Link. Plus, there's a lot we've added. We're starting to get some videos in there. We do have another piece to Link that's another kind of component that we call NFPA Direct. That's a situational navigation tool where you can go in and, say, I'm going to go in and wire a swimming pool. And I've never done that before. You can go in and there's 4 different filters that you can navigate to what you're doing based on the building, the equipment you're using, the system that you have. and narrow it down, and you can get to what we build out a situation around swimming pools. And then it has a sub piece to equipotential bonding and all that kind of stuff. But it has artwork and everything that goes along with it. So you can see what it looks like. It's got all the code sections that are relevant that tie to it. You can go from that section and open up the full code book right out of that. So that's a
stroke of genius, man.
Yeah, it was somebody smarter than me decided to do that. I'm glad I got pulled into it though.
So I've had students that are using the PDF version of the book, and I heard that there was a subscription. The NFPA did the subscription thing, and I just thought, okay, it's another subscription. I had no idea it was this.
Yeah.
So I've got to get my hands on that and play with that. That's incredible.
14-day free trial, nfpa.org/link. You go in, and it's email based. So once you put your email address in, that's what it ties to. But there's, if, for example, if you guys as a school wanted to get it for all your instructors, there's preset pricing for groups of 5, groups of 10. Then anything beyond 10 is custom pricing. But the way it works is you handle, when you do those group subscriptions, it's the admin on your end. You're the admin. So you can giveth and taketh away through email addresses, whoever you want. So if you're using it for students even, and you want to roll it, you got some people graduating, you're going to pull those back and give it to the incoming class. You can do that. Same thing as, as a contractor, of course, you can do that way as well. Somebody goes somewhere else, you can pull theirs back, give it to another employee.
I can see 2 uses for this right off the bat. I got out of private industry and I went back into hospitals, which is where I really like, and that's where I went back to work at. So I'm still a senior guy up at a hospital, and we have our code books.
Yep.
But this is much better because I can hit 72, can hit 101,
99.
70, 99.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And they're all in there.
Fire extinguishers.
One price, you get it all. And the other cool thing too, well, another cool thing, I shouldn't say the other cool thing. Another cool thing is you got different editions in there. So of course the 2023 NEC, the most recent one is in there, but it goes back to the 2011 working digitally like that. So,
that's important because in the sprinkler testing, NFPA 25, the 11 version or 10, which one it is.
Yep.
That's the one that CMS uses.
Yep.
So CMS is not like current.
Yep.
You have to go
2011 back. 99 is what 11. They're using too.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's crazy old.
Yep.
And you're like, we've advanced so far past then, and we're still having to think like
they're in there. There's a search feature. So you can search it by the whole book. You can narrow it down by the chapter. You can search all NFPA codes and standards to figure, if you got a term, you just want to see where it's at within all codes and standards. It's pretty powerful. I would try at least the free subscription and see what you think of it.
I think we'll do that. That's a good idea. And I just finished my last in-person classroom teaching last night.
Okay.
For this, for the summer break. And but I do meet with my students next Tuesday and Wednesday on Zoom before I start the final. So I'll put that out.
Yep. And you can share that screen with them too. I mean, if you've got your subscription set up by then, or your trial set up, I mean, you can even pull it up and show them what it does. It's pretty cool. And obviously you have my contact info. So if you have any questions,
I do. That's excellent, man. So you were involved in not putting this together, but at least talking about it and getting the word out.
Yeah. So my big part in the rollout was building the electrical situations for direct. Yeah. So I sat down with, we use external artists, but we have a development manager, content development manager that I work closely with in-house. And he's kind of the middleman between me and the artists, but we're marking stuff up and we go through a few rounds of art, trying to get it just right, showing like things would look in the field. And so I did a lot of that. They came to me with a few situations that they wanted. I threw some more back at them that, hey, maybe we should do this, this, and this, and got the green light. And we're constantly, that's something that's constantly changing. We're constantly building those situations, taking feedback from, people if they let us know, hey, we'd really like you to get something in on this, we'll try to queue that up.
That's a really good idea. I'm just, grab my chin. It means I'm thinking I could see that because I'm a fire monkey. That's really all I do is fire protection one way or another, fire alarms or sprinklers, mostly alarms now. But yeah, I could definitely think of a lot of situations where that would be very helpful.
Yeah, there's a lot of crossover too. I mean, when you start thinking about even the electrical stuff, I mean, of course, we can just set up blueprints where, it tells you where to put, emergency and egress lighting, but, you got to go back to 101 to
Mhm.
figure out exactly what you need to do,
Yeah.
the life safety code. So, with that, you got it right there at your fingertips if you need to reference it.
Well, I was working with a couple of high voltage guys, and we had to wire some stuff into a roof where we're going to add some equipment. And then they started talking about, wait a minute, if we have life safety, a critical branch, there's a special rule on how they can populate it and how many wires they're going to have in it. And they're all of them talking back and forth, trying to figure out what that was. And it was way over my head. I'm like, that's why we hire you and stuff. So, but they all got in this discussion right there. And it was all code. This is Dynaelectric, which is our primary electrical contractor here in town that we use. And these guys are just absolutely on their game. I mean, they're on their game. And so the two of them are discussing it with their manager, with the guy who's kind of pricing it out and looking at both ways and how they're going to get to the code, who's going to go get their code book and figure out what exactly is required here, what the hospital wants. And I just thought, damn. This would have solved that. Honest to God. We could have just, because all of us carry our phones.
It's right there. It's a lot lighter to carry than about 10 codes.
Man, is it ever? It's in your pocket. I mean, this right here, this little phone, as I told my students, look, if you're up on a ladder and you're doing something, whip out your phone, start asking questions, see what's going on. Or you pull a panel apart, take a picture before you start it.
Yep.
Because at 3:30, when you're trying to re-terminate everything, and you remembered how you took it apart, but you don't remember crap about how to put it back together again, you're going to go, hold on.
Advice.
Uncle Mike said that. There it is right there.
Yep. Take Uncle Mike's advice. Great advice.
So you're working with content development people and graphic artists and developing situations that help explain the verbiage in the code.
Yep. Yeah. So it's you pick what situation you're in. I mean, you can go the other direction. You can go through the code book and try to figure out all the components you need. But as you know, you could be in several different articles, grabbing sections and trying to figure that out.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah. Not necessarily the easiest way of doing it. So if you think about it from the aspect of, hey, I've never really done this wiring in this area before. Let me go see if I can narrow down if they've got a situation built for it. And I can go that route and figure out, what we need to do. We did one with, so my group, I'm in the technical services department, and we have 10 people in our department. And, there's fire protection engineers and industrial chemical, and we got quite the facet of people. But so we all build these for our groups, but then we work collectively sometimes. So we build a PV one for a commercial PV where we've got different pathways and things like that need to be put in that aren't in the NEC, but we're installing the solar panels as the electrician, right? So, the solar company is. So, you got to know exactly where these need to go. Now, hopefully you got handed a set of blueprints that you can go off and it's fine, but real world, things change on the job, right? That building that was supposed to be 60 by 60 is now 50 by 50. And now we're trying to cram, so having a better knowledge or at least having that accessibility is a good thing.
Well, I was teaching my students, I only teach 2 code classes out of my 12-week term. I just devote 2 classes to code, and I call it Stump the Chump. And what it is I make them write their own question and put it up. And we talk about techniques on how to write questions. And are you really trying to answer the question that's based on code, or is it somebody's test writer who likes to see if you can, decipher English? Let's make sure that the questions are valid. Write them anywhere in the code book. It could be in, circuses or swimming pools or fire alarm systems or whatever you want. And the idea is that we're all going to try to find these answers. And it's not finding the answer. It's how did you find it? Did you look in the index? Did you stumble over it? Did you look on the web? How did you figure this out? And so we all do it as a class, and we talk about that whole scene. So when I'm teaching the code, it's just their first real exposure to it. and I'm showing them examples of just, how this code book is put together. And grounding and bonding is something I say, look, I recommend you read this article entirely through a couple of times so that you can see the thousands of different ways that they're going to manipulate these words to tell you what they're looking for.
Yeah.
And I said, and I'll pick on photovoltaics. When I first studied photovoltaics, it was a very short article. It was a couple of pages. Now it's many pages. Yeah. And I said, but think about it. When you put a whole acre or 2 or 10 of panels out there and they've got a problem and there's no way to shut off the sun. So, code is written based upon the snaps that we didn't think about when we first put these things in place. Put them on a roof, fire happens, fire department's got to come out, they got to cut through your photovoltaic. So how do they do that? If they don't have a quick disconnect, what are they going to, what are they now exposed to besides the smoke and the fire? And then possibly, arcing themselves as they cut through these photovoltaic cells to get to the fire. I said, so those are the things I want you to think about. And this is why code is based upon, sometimes in some cases deaths, so that we don't make it happen again.
And I love hearing you talk about the fire department in that way, because as electricians, it's easy for us to just live in our world and not think about how it impacts everybody else. Okay, we need to do this installation, blah, 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 but you don't think about the fact when you're installing those solar panels that, something goes wrong. A lot of times the firefighters have to get up on the roof to cut a hole, to get everything going. So they're up with the solar panels now that are going to be energized still because it's light outside. So, when you start talking like rapid shutdown gets put in, requirements, everybody's up in arms maybe because it's, more money, this and that. But, it's really a safety piece for that.
It's a killer for people.
Yeah. The 2020 is the first time when there's an emergency disconnect that's required now for homes, and it was pushed by the International Association of Firefighters. They put in a PI for that and really, wanted to do that to help their firefighters. I think they have something crazy, 100 and something thousand firefighters, members, maybe even more than that. But, when you start thinking about those people that are coming to help you when you're in a bad circumstance, why wouldn't we want to take care of them and put in code requirements that help them to do their job and be safer in doing it? Yeah.
And these are guys who are putting their life on the line. They're having to breathe toxic fumes that are, most of these guys die of cancer because of the crap that they breathed in over all the years. And are trying to put your house out. So I'm totally with you. Like, do what it takes to make sure they don't have any more failures. But
help them help you.
Yeah.
It's just one example. I mean, there's lots of them where it makes
there's tons of them.
Yeah.
I had a student one time, I'll tell you a little joke, but funny story. I had a student who didn't prepare his question, and I'm not a terribly hard person to deal with. So he just opened up his code book, and we were probably at 2017, to the very last page, the very last index, the informative index for ADA, and just grabs the very last comment in the book before it goes to the index. And that's what he wrote the question on. And it was ADA, it was basically an ADA guidance of how high gas pump handle can be, off of the, it's like 54 inches or something like that. And man, the whole class we went bonkers looking for this answer. And the whole time he's just fidgeting in his chair because he can't. There's no crosses. There's no crosses to the index. You can't find anything. We're looking in gas dispensers. We're looking on docks. We're looking everywhere. We cannot find this thing. And finally, we just said, okay, we give up. And he just goes to the very back of the book, points to it. So now I teach all the students. I say, you can give this to your journeyman as an unanswerable question. How many inches off the finished floor does a gas pump handle have to be? And good luck with that. And you can't find the answer unless you just know where to look. I mean, ADA informative annex is not there it's there for information. That's it. Just a little bit of help. God, man, we just laughed our asses off at that. Well, it sounds like you like what you're doing and you didn't make a bad choice in career moves at all.
No, I love it. I feel very fortunate, that my grandfather started a business in the 50s. there's been a lot of people that have benefited from that, not just in our family, but, others. And certainly we got extended family cousins that got involved and then, went and started their own business or went to work for the state. So I feel like I owe a lot to the industry. And that was one of the things I told NFPA when I interviewed with them, when they asked why I wanted to be there, is because I feel like it gives me the platform to have the most impact, positive impact on the industry that I possibly can, to kind of pay back my grandfather for what he did and, what he built for our family. So to be able to do that and be there and have that platform is a good thing, especially where I'm at in my career. I probably got another, 15, 20 years left. So I'm closer to the end than I am to the beginning. But, at the same time, I think I still got a lot of good work that hopefully I can do to help the industry.
That's crazy, man. I'm really proud of you. You did well.
Thank you.
Especially being a master electrician at that age. That's really young.
Yeah, it was young, but it was, I'd learned a ton. I mean, I remember growing up, my grandfather's, he had his business initially in the house, and he had like a 3-car garage. So he had an office built in the corner, and then it was just rows of parts and stuff like that. And I remember going out there, organizing stuff, asking what it was and stuff. So it was kind of, I guess it was in my blood from an early age.
I had to have been, yeah.
Yeah. But it's a great
I had a woman that came up and did a class for us one time up at the hospital I worked at. And her father kind of did the same thing. Her father had opened up a shop and had run it for years. And then she took it over. She became a master electrician as well, but she lost her vision. Like she literally could not see anymore. She had some sort of degenerative eye disease. So she really had nobody following in her footsteps. She sold the shop. But before she did, she took all these examples of like problems that had happened, kind of like what you're pointing out in your graphics, and put them in a bunch of totes. So a bunch of us electricians sitting in this class, and I was like 30 of us in there. And this woman comes in with her totes. The first thing she does is hand out toys to everybody in the class. I kid you not. She handed like, Pokey and Gumby and all these different things, all these different balls and stuff like that. She goes, just take a toy, put it on your desk. And then she starts talking. And I'm like, wow, this woman's pretty good. Like, she's really, really good. She starts talking about arc fault. She pulls out an example of an arc fault, what's left, and passes that around. So I think 20, 30 minutes into the class, a couple of the electricians are kind of messing with their toys as they're listening to her. And she stops the class and she goes, those are kinesthetic learners right there. My jaw hit the floor. I was like, damn, completely stole her kinesthetic, audible, visual learners, and teach my students that when I start the class. You're going to sit there and fiddle around and draw on little notes. I'm totally good with that because I know where your head's at,
Yeah.
But she taught a class I still remember. And I took this probably in 2002 or 2004. Honest to God. Like that's how powerful of an instructor she was.
That's amazing. And it's awesome that she could still, pass her knowledge, even though she was, handicapped at that point, with not being able to do it herself.
She couldn't see well enough to break apart, any wire, 16 gauge, 18 gauge was really hard for her to just focus in on. And she was losing that fine touch. But other than that, she goes, I can still teach it, man.
Kudos to her for transferring knowledge. I mean, that's like the huge gap we have right now, right? Is transferring the knowledge from the people that are exiting the industry to, the younger folks, and then there's of course some disconnects there with the technologies. Some old school guys at the old company that are like, your phone better not be out on the job site. And here I am saying,
your phone needs to be on the job site. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so it's, you got to find that balance, but the reality is there is years and years of knowledge that's exiting the industry in the next 5-10 years, and that's got to get transferred somehow.
I read your articles, all the ones that were available for me to read. Like you had 4 short articles on one website. I can look it up on my phone, actually. I read all 4 of them. It was the one where you talked about PPEs should be your last choice.
Yep.
Do a job because you'd worked on the high voltage. You are on high voltage. You're like, I just put my 5,000 volt gloves on and work on it. And you realize, well, wait a minute. well, that's the very last thing I should be doing, not the first thing. And I cracked up because I know exactly where you're coming from.
It's rampant, right? I mean,
it's everywhere.
It's what we've been taught. It's what we were taught. It's what we did. Nobody knew what 70E was. Nobody knew the risks that were involved. I mean, you can sit and show arc flash videos to classes all day, and they won't want that to happen to them, of course. But are you doing the things on the job site that you should be doing to help prevent that? Now, is it entirely preventable? Probably not. But if you have the right equipment, you're doing the right things, you're trying to shut it down. And let's face it, work, at least I can tell you I've done it. I'm sure you guys will agree with me. There's been a ton of work that I've done live that there's absolutely no reason I should have done it live. And if something would have went wrong, not only to me would, there'd been a risk, but also the building owner would have been out of commission for a while, which would have made them even more upset than it probably would have been if I would have talked them into letting me shut it down initially. So not an easy conversation, but something that we need to think more about in the industry, is it really something that has to be done live? And then of course, pulling the NFPA 70E stuff in with, okay, if it does, then I need you to sign off an energized electrical work permit and things of that nature. Now we're having those difficult conversations again, where, okay, if you're telling me it has to be done this way, I want you to sign off on this. Well, I don't want to sign off on that. Like, I don't want to accept the risk. Well, like, I don't either.
Hot potato. One of us going to have to carry it.
Yeah. Right.
You've got it. You're exactly right. If we don't pass along everything that's in our skulls to the next generation, they're going to have to either find out the hard way, which sucks because we know it. And since I was a Navy guy, the Navy pounds into you that if I'm a watchstander and this is what I do, there should be no secrets on what we're doing with a guy who's going to do your job when you're asleep.
Sure.
Obviously, if you're in a different discipline, but if we're in the same thing and your job is to make sure missiles don't hit my ship, I definitely want to sleep well knowing that you know how the equipment operates, what you're going to do.
You got a sick day, somebody's got to fill in on that. Yeah.
And so I keep saying the same thing. Like there should be nothing in my head. There should be no tricks, no techniques, no, things that I know that you don't know. Because it's just like a master mason. If I'm teaching you how to do masonry, by the time you turn out, you need to be a better mason than me. You need to be a better electrician than me. You need to be a better firearm monkey than me. Period.
That's a great approach. Leave it better than you found it. Absolutely.
Leave it better than you found it. And you have the same exact philosophy. And when I read your articles, I'm like, oh, this guy and I are cut from the same piece of stone, man.
I was gonna say, you read my articles and you still wanted to talk to me, so I guess I should consider
absolutely. You write well.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
So it's like
dumb old electrician figured out how to put some words on a page, so I guess that's a good thing.
we all have I work with a guy who's got a master's in lead, and he's an electrician.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. And he's fun. He's fun to work with. He's super bright. And so, and he is so good at everything he puts his hands to that he's going ahead and getting a different license. He's going from, our limited energy license. He's going to the next level up for working in like a hospital or a hotel. It's called LBME. So he can work on three-phase 480 stuff. And he's good at it. And so everything this guy does is like stellar to everybody but himself. He thinks he doesn't do a good job.
His own worst critic.
And I'm just like, you're so goddamn good. Fine, we'll just keep it this way. It looks all right. He just goes out and does it harder.
Well, it's cool that he has that desire for knowledge. I mean, that lifelong learner piece, I think, is a huge thing for everyone. There's always something to learn. And I've always prided myself on never being the smartest guy in the room. Like, if you could surround yourself with the smartest people in the room, that's a good bingo. Yeah.
I'm teaching him programming. We're getting to the point where we're about to teach him the programming stuff. And I'm still muddling my way through the more advanced stuff. I could do the basic things, but the more advanced stuff is still baffling me at this point. And I can't wait to see him hit it. I can't wait to see it because I know this guy's going to eclipse me in about 3 years. And I'm going, yes.
Yeah.
Now I can die a happy man.
Yeah. We got a guy that we hired with my dad's company, there used to be a school to work apprenticeship program. So you would get the high school kids in between their junior and senior year. They would be able to come and essentially work for you for the summer and then work co-op their senior year.
Sure.
But there's a gentleman that worked for us, hired in my dad's company back in, oh boy, it was probably 95. No, I'm sorry. 2005, 2004, somewhere in there. But he's got his own shop now, and he's doing, PLC work and programming and all this stuff. And he was a country boy. Like he came from, working on the farm, and he's big and brute, and, he was awesome at what he did. But the fact that he's grown, he's got his own company now, he's got a partner, they got, I think, 30 people, and they're doing all this crazy
awesome
PLCs and all this stuff. And he's excelling in it. So it's cool to see, people that come in with nothing and can go out, even if they leave you and go out on their own. And you can see
they're successful.
You kind of planted a seed and they go and have their own success. It's awesome to watch.
I always, when I start my classes, I always go through the classroom, have everybody talk about who they are, where they came from, what they did before they got in the apprenticeship. And you'd be shocked. Like I had a guy a couple of terms ago who was a pilot. He flew an Embraer aircraft for like 15, 20 years. Nice. And I said, well, you're a commercial pilot. What the hell are you doing here? He goes, I don't want to fly anymore. I got to do something different. And this sounds like a lot of fun.
Yep.
And a lot of these guys have some programming skills. So just like you're talking about, they can program fire panels, they can program access control, they can program camera systems and stuff like that. They love it. They eat it up.
Yep.
So you're like, yeah, this is what our whole world's going to be. Programmable stuff.
Yep, absolutely. It's going that way for sure.
I really enjoy talking to you. And I'm like super happy that you're at NFPA.
Well, I'm honored to be here with you tonight, and I appreciate you having me.
Well, I hate to keep you up like as late as it is.
Oh no, you're good. I actually took the day off tomorrow because I got to prep for my son's open house this weekend. So
nice.
So it's all right. I got
how many kids do you have?
We have 4 total. Whoa. So I'm second marriage. We each have 2 from our first marriages. So blended household, but we love it.
Nice.
Yep.
Yeah,
so,
I'm on my second marriage too. I get it.
Yeah. You got to figure things out, right?
You sure do.
So I figured out this time. I got an awesome wife.
It's much better.
Yep.
I'll say that.
And I think you learn from everything, right? Whether it's your career, whether it's your personal life, I mean, you learn what's good for you, what isn't good for you. Maybe make better choices next time around.
Yeah, exactly.
It's when you make those choices and continue to make those choices and don't learn from them that it becomes.
It's when you bang your head on the wall for many, many, many years.
Yep.
And you finally go, man, I just don't think I need to do this anymore. I think it's a better way to live my life.
Yep.
Okay, so if folks want to look at the app, they go to NFPA, and is it just easy to fire off the site or?
So let me give you 2 pieces of information. So first, if you want to get to link, nfpa.org/link, that's LINK. Okay. That'll it'll show you, it's got it's a web page, it's got the overview, some of the features and things of that nature. But if you scroll down to where it has the plans, there's a free trial. So if you've never tried it before, you can use that free trial. If you already did try it and you got your email address, it won't work again with that same email address. So that's one thing. Now, if you want to get it onto your phones, I suggest, and I should give you this information anyways, if you go to YouTube and you just search NFPA link, there is a channel on there where our entire tech services team, so all our genres, we build videos based on the code. They're usually 5 to 6 minute videos, but there's tons of, and it's all free. So you can go there, but that has 2 different videos that are built into that that shows you how to get it on an iPhone and how to get it on an Android.
Nice.
And it's pretty simple. It's just based on your home screen stuff. But once it's on your phone, it works just like everything else you would get through the App Store, or, any of that, and functions just like it. So, and it does work offline too. So there's an offline mode. So if you're working in a tunnel or something where you don't have cell coverage or just in a bad area, you can still have that offline mode where you can still access it.
That's a stroke of genius that you guys did.
Yeah, somebody was really thinking. I don't even know who the actual person was that thought of it, but I know there's a lot of people that worked hard on getting it to come
Oh,
to
they need to be praised.
yeah.
Also, the 23 code, hands down, the best I've read for 70.
Oh, good.
The NEC, hands down, the 23 version was jaw-droppingly good. And when I did
Good.
my CEs for my licenses, I got a few. I actually enjoy my continuing it more than I ever have, because it's like, wow, they really put some thought into this, man. And I like that. I like that the book is more engaging, and it makes a hell of a lot more sense, and it's laid out more logically.
Good.
So
I'll give that feedback when I'll be 2 weeks in Redondo Beach, California in October for the second draft meetings.
Nice.
So for the 2026. So that's actually so the first draft for the 2026 will post mid-July. I think July 10th is the date we have on there. It's usually maybe a couple days earlier, but 10th is what we have. But once that posts, then you can look at it and then you can do public comment. So
Okay.
there's
And that's where people can get involved and go, hey, look, we
Yep.
should be looking at this.
So at that point in the process, they can only comment. So there's no new addition. So you can't put in your input. You'll have to wait until the 2029 cycle for that. But just keep that in mind that it's always so the input opens almost, I would say, 6 weeks after the other one goes live. So the 2026 NEC should typically is approved by the Standards Council in September of the year prior. So it'd be September 2025.
Okay.
It's approved. It will go effective shortly after that. And then usually within 6 weeks of that, the next cycle opens for public input.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it's a constant process. It keeps moving. So just
and think about it. All of those publications and how many committees and how many people are involved in that. That's a lot.
Yep. Yep. And you can find any of those. So all our codes and standards, the way it works is you've got your NFPA.org prefix and then the / and then the code number. So for the NEC, it's 70. And then when you go to that, it gives you a breakdown. There's a tab that says next edition. That's where you can find all the stuff for the next one that's coming. But there's stuff on there too about the current edition. We call it our doc info pages, but every single code we have works like that. So if you want to get into 70E, NFPA.org /70E,
Nice.
any of those.
And I do show arc flash videos too. Just even though we don't work in those,
Yep.
There's levels. I show them because I show the same one to each class. There's one that it's not really a video like where you see an arc flash, but it happened at a place in South Carolina at one of the Weyerhaeuser plants. And these guys it's called Elkins. It's like this little tiny town. And it had a paper mill. And a guy took basically a fluke and read across the 2300.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Eddie
Adams.
Eddie Adams. Yep.
I've showed that video.
Yep.
Yeah. I've showed that video over and over and over again.
Yep.
And the only reason I do that is to say, look, if you walk into an electrical room, you walk into an MCC room and you see somebody opening it up, re-energize the can.
Yeah.
Get away. Like recognize that, they may wind up taking this guy out in a bag.
Yeah.
If you're not careful. And you could easily get engulfed in that.
And how much the details matter. He just used the wrong voltage meter.
Yeah.
They could have been sitting next to each other and grabbed the wrong. I mean, who knows what the thing was, but the outcome was it impacted a ton of people, not only his family. I mean, his coworkers were in tears telling the story.
And it happened like right after that happened. They must have just videoed us like within a month or two after he died.
Yeah. There's a lot of good stories out there. I shouldn't say good. There's a lot of stories out there that tell a good story about why it's so important. I had a webinar 4 weeks ago with, I don't know if you know Jason Brosen, but he's an arc flash survivor. And that's
actually I do.
Pretty darn powerful. Yeah. So that's on if you go to nfpa.org /webinars, that recording is on there, where he and I went, back and forth. He really told his story. And he'll be we do an annual conference called NFPA Conference and Expo. That's in the middle of June every year. This year it happens to be in Orlando in another week and a half.
Oh, wow.
And he'll be there speaking at that.
So you go to all those as well?
I do. Yeah.
So you get to travel quite a bit then.
Yeah, I don't travel a ton, and that was kind of the deal when I came in, and like, I was trying to get away from driving every day, so I didn't want to travel a ton. This year's been a little more travel just because with the NEC stuff, once it gets rolling, you got a couple weeks of first draft meetings, couple weeks of second draft meetings. I do get out and occasionally and do some professional development stuff or go, do some training. The next training I've got is the NTI for the IBEW here in Ann Arbor, so I don't go too far for that.
Yeah, that's nice.
but that's the closest travel I do.
And you still keep your licenses renewed, right? And still keep your
Yep, keep everything up.
I do the same thing. I don't want to let one lapse.
Nope. Work hard to get those. You don't want to let them go.
It's the same thing at work.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of work in to get them. That's the trophy sitting on the shelf, right? You don't want to throw them away.
It's exactly. Oh, Corey, what a pleasure talking to you, man.
I appreciate it. It's great talking with you.
Would you come back on at some point?
Absolutely. Yeah, let me know what you guys need.
Thanks for listening to the Half Watt Podcast. We always want to hear from you, and we encourage you to email us at halfwattpod@gmail.com with questions or even your own stories. Funny, crazy, or praiseworthy, we want to hear it all. You can follow us on Instagram at halfwattpod to stay up to date on our feed. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and share us with a friend, the best way to help us grow. The Half Watt Podcast is a production of Now Hear This Studios.